reflect the views, attitudes, whims, deeds, or any other proclivities of the management of this housing development, nor that of the administration of the community council. However, the program does reflect the research done by the participants in the program who are live in living color in studio and by phone interview. And ladies and gentlemen, we're very happy to have with us a young man who has done some research over and over and over again. And the more he does the research, the deeper he gets into areas that have been public but unknown to the public. His name is Dr. Wesley Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir, to you and your guest or your co-host.
And here's the topic today that we have requested Dr. Wesley Muhammad to begin to dig into this information, and that is, what do black people think they know about weed, marijuana? What is it that they don't know? And the motivation for this particular subject, immediate in terms of now, stems from the front page of the Final Call. The current issue is weed is not the answer. So, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, what is it that black folks think they know about weed? And then, what is it that they don't know and should know?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, first, most black people who smoke weed or even don't smoke weed come to know that cannabis is a holy herb. And that is true. God planted the cannabis plant probably around 12,000 some odd years ago, probably in Central Asia. And the cannabis plant that God planted and gifted to the earth is absolutely a holy herb. It is medicinal. It has great healing powers if used properly by the human. And what black people don't know, but should know, is that the loud that they are smoking ain't that. It ain't God's holy herb. It's not what God planted. The loud that we smoke, the chronic that Dr. Dre dedicated his historic album to, that wasn't God's holy herb. That was weaponized weed. So what black people don't know, but very much need to know, is that the weed we are consuming is weaponized weed. The U.S. government weaponized it against black people.
So wait, Brother Wesley, what, that's on the corners of 125th Street and Harlem, whatever avenue you want to be on. What we have are statements that are made, and then people accept the statements, but there's no backup. How do you know? What makes you think that the weed has been weaponized?
Well, we don't have to think because it's a matter of public record. It is not speculation that, for example, the weed and the THC preparations in particular is made available by approved dispensaries in legal states. The THC that's provided in these preparations are not natural THC. The government has the patent on natural THC. What's provided in legal dispensaries that's presented falsely as THC is actually what's called in old document Adams 9-carbon molecule. The Adams refers to Roger Adams, who was a U.S. Army chemical warfare specialist who produced one of the first synthetic forms of THC, man-made forms of THC. The U.S. Army Chemical Corps and the Department of Defense in general built on Roger Adams synthetic THC. And what was done, a nitrogen atom was put in a THC molecule. And what this did, Brother Leroy, the difference between Louis Armstrong's marijuana that he smoked, and our great jazz musicians, and the loud that smoke today. Not only did Louis Armstrong's weed have less than 1% THC, and it was natural THC, the loud today, or the marijuana smoke today, has upwards of 20% THC, and the THC is not natural. It has a nitrogen atom in the molecule, which is why it is addictive today like it never was. So this isn't speculation. This is a matter of public record, and it is class. I close on this point. The operation that weaponized THC is called in the press the U.S. Army's Conquer by Cannabis program. Get that? Conquer by Cannabis program. The U.S. Army specialist, Dr. Ketchum, who was over this project, said, quote, "We were not looking for medical value in their dealing with cannabis." He said, "We were looking to subdue people," end quote.
Dr. Wesley, the time period where this was finalized and where it began and where it was finalized when the guy actually came up with this synthetic.
Yes, the first synthetic form of THC was produced by Ryder Adams in around 1941 for the U.S. Army. He began the process in 1937, but he completed the production of the first synthetic THC for the U.S. Army Chemical Warfare Division in around 1941. Of critical importance is what occurred in 1963, 64, 65, 66. This is when the U.S. Army Chemical Corps intensified, advanced the production. They created a super pot. They took Roger Adams' 1940, 1941 synthetic THC and made it super potent, super powerful, and they injected the nitrogen atom in it. And what they did, Brother Leroy, this is what's critical. They tested the new super potent THC on black bodies at a drug farm, a government-run drug farm in Lexington, Kentucky. It was black bodies that this weaponized weed was first tested on.
Black human beings.
Between 1964 through 1967.
Okay, we're talking about human beings. You use the term bodies, and folks might be thinking about cadavers.
Human beings, black male human beings in particular.
Keep on going, brother. Weaponize.
And the one who oversaw Dr. Harris Isbell, is because black facts matter. So we know this isn't Brother Wesley speculating. It was Dr. Harris Isbell who was over the project to test this weaponized THC on black bodies in the drug farm in Lexington, Kentucky. Dr. Harris Isbell.
And in that period, Lexington was the place where folks would want their sons, their daughters to go if they were on heroin. So if we heard that someone in the neighborhood got into Lexington, that was, for us, good news.
That is right. Until you got there and discovered that you would not have known it, you would be tested 800 of the CIA MK Ultra prospective chemicals. MK Ultra was the CIA's program to find chemicals to control human behavior.
Wow.
Every chemical, upwards of some 800 chemicals that the CIA tested as prospective chemical weapons. They sent those chemicals to Dr. Harris Isbell in Lexington, and he tested the CIA's potential chemical weapons on those black bodies at Lexington. Black heroin addicts who thought they had come up by being admitted into the drug farm there in Lexington end up being CIA guinea pigs.
Okay. We're talking, ladies and gentlemen, with Dr. Wesley Muhammad. He is part of the research team at the Nation of Islam. He just happens to be a part of the research team. His background is definitely grassroots, and grassroots meaning from the hood.
Yes, sir.
The average person who now has how many doctorates do you have, brother?
Well, I have one doctorate, one master's, one bachelor's.
Okay. And some unofficial doctorates based on the research that you've done. How did you stumble onto, I'm using the term stumble, what led you into the...
No, and stumble is appropriate.
Okay, go ahead.
Stumble is appropriate. I wasn't searching down the pot plot. I was doing research on the chemical feminization of the black man, which I didn't know anything about until God revealed that to the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. I heard him share with the world the fact of the chemical feminization of the black man. I was researching that. I was tracking down the documentation of that. And in that process, I discovered that marijuana, THC, is one of the tools used in the laboratory to chemically feminize non-humans and humans. And so when I stumbled across that, because I wasn't looking for it, then it led me to deeper down the rabbit hole, and I discovered by Allah's grace the pot plot.
Okay,
and the parties involved.
For the benefit of the audience who are not familiar with researching, with going below the surface, just take us back to the moment where you're doing research. So how do you start? You're looking for the chemical feminization of the black male, and so how do you start on that? And then what happens where you open a book or open some document and this other information comes out about weed? Just put us in that zone.
Yes, sir. I could share that process because it is indeed revealing. It was I stumbled upon a pot plot in a reference in a very important document, a 1985 document that I quote in my chemical feminization lecture at Moss Miriam. The document was scientists boasting on how for the last 30 years they have successfully induced sexual inversion in non-human species. Sexual inversion meaning induce femininity in males and induce masculinity in females. This document was boasting that over the last 30 years, they have mastered 5 processes of inducing sexual inversion in non-humans. It listed the various methods. One of the 5 methods they were boasting about was using anti-androgen, chemicals that attack and diminish the male hormone production in the male. And if you inhibit or block the production of testosterone in a male fetus, you can cause that male fetus to grow up and be gay, homosexual. And one of the chemicals listed in this report as a chemical that successfully blocked testosterone in a male fetus and therefore can lead to homosexuality later, one of the chemicals listed was marijuana, or the THC in marijuana. So that's when I first stumbled across that revelation. So I pursued it. I studied the endocrine system, the system of glands that secrete our hormones, such as testosterone, cortisol, and estrogen. I studied the effect of cannabis, THC, CBD, and cannabinoids in general on the endocrine system. And all of this led me back ultimately to the U.S. Army Chemical Corps, the Army's Chemical Warfare Division, and how the U.S. Army has been attempting to weaponize THC since the early 1940s with Roger Adams.
Okay, and just go back to just in terms of the document that you came upon. Where was that? What was the circumstances?
Yes, a 1985 document on paradigms for homosexuality, scientific paradigms for homosexuality and heterosexuality. It was in the Journal of Endocrinology, the 1985 article.
Okay.
And again, dealing with it was outlining the 5 methods that by that time, 1985, had been mastered in the lab, and how to artificially induce homosexuality in the laboratory. That's what that document was, or that report was documenting.
Okay, so someone looking at this, let's say a doctor, a nurse looking at that, they would, in looking at that particular report in that journal, they would possibly stop there in terms of, they're doing it to canaries, they're doing it to frogs, they're doing it to non-human beings. But you went further. What led you into saying, okay, if they're doing it over here, then they're doing it over there?
Because all of those who are familiar with the scientific method in the U.S. know that animal models are used with the eye on the effects on humans.
Okay.
So no experiment is done on a knockout mouse, the lab mouse. No experiment is done on a knockout mouse for the purpose of seeing what this does to the knockout mouse. The knockout mouse is substitute for the human being. So when they, in fact, not just the knockout mouse, which is very important, the chimpanzee, that is the test animal in laboratories or in institutes such as UCLA, scientists acknowledge that the lab monkey is proxy for inner city black male. And many of the tests that were conducted on lab monkeys had an eye specifically to the inner city black male. So that's one. That's an important point to know, that not only is scientific experiments done on animals, they almost always have an eye to or on the human beings. And in many cases in particular, the inner city black male. In this case, I went from this notice, stumbling upon this note that cannabis or marijuana or THC was successfully used in a laboratory to block androgens or testosterone in male fetus, which resulted in feminization of that male fetus later in life. This, even to the point, Brother Leroy, If this mouse, and this was the reference here in this 1985 article, that this mouse would attempt later in life to mount other male mice, would not approach a female mouse for sexual relations, but will attempt to mount a male mouse. So they use cannabis to artificially induce homosexual activity in mice, not of mice and men. I have 2018, 2017, 2016, Nigeria, Korea, international, American. The up-to-date science is clear that the same effect that excessive THC exposure has on guinea pigs, on mice, on amphibians, has the same effect on the human fetus. We know, Brother Leroy, the mechanism of how THC inhibits or prevents testosterone development in the human fetus. We know that THC cuts off testosterone production at its source in the brain by attacking the hypothalamus, the area in the brain that ultimately is the source of testosterone production in our testicles. That process starts in this area in the brain called the hypothalamus, and the THC attacks the hypothalamus and cuts off production at its root source. This happens in the human fetus as well as in the animal.
So here you have, here we're dealing with a situation where the male, the inversion, sexual inversion, homosexuality is set in motion in the fetus, and
yes,
because they found, and you're going to have to go into that, but let me I'm trying to lay out my thoughts. Here you have feminized males from birth,
yes, sir.
artificially feminized males. And then later on, you have those who are straight males who are smoking marijuana. So you got a marriage later on. You have an affinity or an acceptance on the part of those who have been smoking marijuana over a period of time to condone or become involved, and this is a scenario I'm laying out, with those males who have been feminized.
Because it's important. When people heard me say this weed we're smoking is feminizing us, at that time we made the inaccurate leap and said Dr. Wesley Muhammad said weed is making you gay. I did not say that then for a reason. I said weed is feminizing you. I was speaking to grown men when I said that. And weed won't homosexualize a grown smoker, though it can feminize a grown smoker. And what's important here is we have to understand that all feminization isn't sexual feminization. Homosexuality is a form of sexual feminization, but there is also non-sexual feminization. A most important, the clearest illustration of a non-sexual feminization that adult smokers succumb to is over emotionality in these males. Males have become very hyper impulsive, hyper emotional, and that is. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to any sister or woman who is in the listening audience, but it is a biological, neurological fact that men and women have different emotional profiles. And it's rooted in neurology. The reason women are tend to be more emotionally expressive is because women have higher levels of blood flow in areas of the brain that control emotionality. Men have less. Men have less. So the female emotional profile has higher levels of emotionality because of this higher level of blood flow in the brain in these particular areas. Men are less emotional because men have less blood flow. They call it cerebral blood flow, regional cerebral blood flow. The blood flow in these particular areas are less in men. That's why women have a more emotional profile. Men have a less emotional profile. THC, this weed with the elevated THC. With modern technology, we in brain scans, we can map, observe, and take pictures of regional cerebral blood flows. Then chronic smokers of this weaponized weed have the cerebral blood flow profile of a woman. They have elevated blood flow in these areas, limbic areas of the brain that control emotionality, and this is why you have high emotionality in chronic weed smokers. So that is a feminization. It's a non-sexual feminization, but it's a feminization. And that is what I directly referenced when I first said weed is feminizing a black man.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarity. The topic that we have, I'm so caught up in everything. The topic that we have, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, is what black people think they know about weed/marijuana, what they don't know but should know. And our guest online is Dr. Wesley Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. And I'm just sliding back over to one of the areas that you touched on, and that is the research that you've done, the feminization of the black male. How does that happen in the fetus? In the how does that happen in a woman who's been yeah.
Now, did you say the word pregnant?
No, I'm saying yes. In other words, you have the fetus that's been affected. We know the THC is with smokers and whatnot. What happens? Yeah. What are they doing in terms of affecting women of childbearing age, men? The male and female.
Yes, thank you. Great question. And let me please raise this because I heard two questions in your question. How does weaponized weed affects women? And it's very important. And how does weaponized weed affect the fetus in a pregnant woman? Now, the reason these are two different questions is because while this weaponized weed feminizes black men, this weaponized weed masculinizes black women. And that's very important because we don't want to be overly chauvinist in our discourse and warnings about this weaponized weed. Dear sister, don't take solace or comfort in hearing weed feminizes men and you smoke weed, you feel safe because you're already feminine. The same THC that cuts off testosterone production in men, leading to feminization of men. That same THC cuts off estrogen production in women and raises testosterone production in women. Estrogen is the feminizing hormone. That's what makes a woman feminine in many ways. That's the source of her curvature. And so when THC cuts off estrogen production in women and then raises testosterone production in women. It's masculinizing you, sister. So don't just look at your man who's getting lifted and don't want him to be feminized. You need to put that blunt down too, because it's masculinizing you. Now to the specific question. THC, if you are pregnant and you smoke weed, which, ya Allah, these devils are encouraging pregnant women today to smoke weed in order to lessen the pain of morning sickness. And according to reports in the New York Times and Forbes magazine, the pregnant female, most are young black pregnant girls. And this is the disastrous effect. That THC, when you are pregnant and you are smoking this weed with 10%, 15%, 20% THC content, that excessively potent THC crosses your placenta, dear sister. It gets into your the environment, the chemical, the hormonal environment of your fetus. Your fetus is now exposed to that excessive THC because it crossed the placenta. And that excessive THC goes to work. It blocks the production. And if it's a male fetus, there are two during the 9 months of pregnancy, there are two major testosterone bursts that masculinize that male fetus. The first testosterone burst, it happens around 18, 19 weeks. It masculinizes the body, the anatomy of that male fetus. The second burst of testosterone that occurs around 34 weeks, it masculinizes the brain, the neurology of that male fetus. So after 9 months, when both testosterone bursts have occurred successfully, a male baby will come out of your womb with a fully masculinized body and a fully masculinized brain. However, if you are toking while pregnant, if you are smoking weed while pregnant with that male fetus, that THC will interfere with the burst of testosterone. It will diminish the testosterone available to masculinize the body and masculinize the brain. And this is how, one reason the black transgender numbers are so high, Brother Leroy. There are 200,000 black transgenders in America today. That's phenomenal. One of the reasons, one of the sources of black transgenderism, or what they would call intersex, is that hormonal disruption in the womb of women. One of the sources of this hormonal disruption is the THC in this weaponized weed.
Talk about the impact of baby formula into this mix.
Yeah. When we talk about chemical warfare against black people, it is right and necessary to talk about THC in this weaponized weed. It is right and necessary to talk about crack cocaine that was dropped on us in the 80s. But even more devastating, because more widespread a chemical weapon, more deadly than crack cocaine and THC, weaponized THC, is soy. Soy, which so many of our people have been misled into believing is a health food. No, it's a chemical weapon, soy. And so when WIC presses poor black mothers primarily to use soy formula for their baby when this government makes soy formula so much more readily available to poor black mothers and babies. This has been more healthy choices. This is because they know the effect of soy in particular as a chemical weapon. The feminization process that we just discussed with THC, soy does the exact same thing. And this is why you should not eat their family. Not just about the soy formula, but if you go to McDonald's, you like McDonald's, family? 200 items on McDonald's list of ingredients has soy in them. The ranch, the bun, the nuggets, 200 items have soy in them, and soy is very deadly. Soy feminizes the male body. It produces male breath. Soy lowers testosterone. Soy depletes zinc, a very important natural, not natural, but important mineral that our body needs. And when you deplete zinc, you know what happens, Brother Leroy?
Come on.
Zinc protects the body against over-estrogenization. Estrogen, a female hormone. And this is why long-time soy users, male, grow breasts. Because their body is estrogenized. Because it is soy. Because the soy depletes zinc that protects against estrogenization. So we cannot talk about chemical warfare against black people and not talk about soy. Soy formula or tofu burgers.
In fact, vegetarian burgers, vegetarian fish, vegetarian, all these things, folks have to really find out what the ingredients are for the vegetarian fish, vegetarian this, vegetarian that. I was totally surprised when I looked at the label of the famous breakfast burgers and breakfast sausage that I had been buying, and I'm going back just a few years, and the bad boy said soy. I said, oh, man. So it's very...
But the two biggest the two biggest gotchas that our enemy got us with is the Impossible Burger and the Popeye chicken sandwich.
Well, break that one out.
The Impossible Burger, all of these health foods, all of these health food gurus were touting the Impossible Burger, and come to find out the Impossible Burger is soy-based and it has that dangerous glyphosate, I think it's called. Very dangerous chemicals in it. And then the Popeye's chicken sandwich that the Negro went crazy to get his hands on, it is laden with soy.
That's interesting. I think that's one ingredient that we missed on an earlier show. We did an assessment with a guest of the chicken sandwich, and what we were looking at, what he looked at was the monosodium glutamate, the MSG in the chicken itself, in the batter, in the flavoring. I think he found 3 or 4 levels of monosodium glutamate in it. Now, in addition, you're pointing out the soy factor.
Absolutely. And even more disconcerting than monosodium glutamate to me is a soy isolate in not just the Popeye chicken sandwich, but again, why do you put soy isolate in a chicken sandwich? Why, McDonald's, do you put soy isolate in 200 of your ingredients? Why Kroger's? Why Jewel's? Why Publix? Why grocery stores do 60% of your products, your food products, 60% have soy isolate in it, even when it's not labeled or listed on the label. It is because soy isolate is listed by the government as a legitimate bioenhancer. So any company is free to bioenhance any food product with soy isolate. And soy isolate is a chemical weapon. Soy causes havoc. Let me give you one example when I close this point. Talking about that chicken sandwich and soy the black people ran to. They analyzed the tumor cells of prostate cancer. They analyzed prostate cancer cells, and they discovered that the prostate cancer cells versus healthy cells, the prostate cancer cells, the cancer cells were depleted of zinc. Now, this is extremely important because the black male in America has the highest prostate cancer incidence of any population on the planet Earth. I didn't say in America. On the planet Earth, there is no male population who is suffering from prostate cancer to the degree that the black man in America is suffering from. And zinc depletion causes prostate cancer. What causes zinc depletion? Exposure to soy isolate. Consuming products bioenhanced by soy isolate deplete zinc, and depletion of zinc can lead and does lead to prostate cancer among other cancers. So the soy isolate, it is quote unquote bioenhancing all of this food made available not just to the general public, but specifically to black people. And this is why, Brother Lee, soy is in that chicken sandwich that has from the restaurant Popeyes that has a black face for the white owner. You thought, like I thought, that sister in the Popeyes commercial was a CEO of Popeyes. No, she isn't. She is used to targeted. Black America was targeted by Popeyes with that sound. That had that chemical weapon, soy isolate, in it, as well as other chemical weapons.
Dr. Wesley, this soy isolate, what is that? What you said it's a bioenhancer.
Yes, sir. It's So what soy isolate is, it's the final stage of an intense processing procedure of the soybean, because they want to inject soy in every stick, but the soybean has an unmistakable taste, so they take the soybean through an excessive processing procedure to remove the beanie taste, to make it invisible to the senses, to the taste buds first, and to the senses in general, so they can, in the final product of this extreme processing procedure, is called soy isolate. And they can thus inject it or inject it in foods invisibly. You eat it, you won't know it's there. You drink it.
What is the
You won't know it's there because of when.
I'm sorry, Dr. Wesley. Let's say you're the manufacturer. Why would you put that in there and you have other ingredients in there? What is a bioenhancer? That's part of the same question. Why would you? Why?
Right. Yes. You would only incorporate soy isolate in ranch dressing, not because it is a preservative, not because it enhances, using enhance in a positive sense, and it enhances our biology. You inject soy in food products because you want. The only reason you would do so is because you want to expose the consumer to the natural effect of soy.
Mm-hmm.
The natural of minerals, the depletion of testosterone, and the raising of estrogen. That is the only reason you would have 50% of your food products at a grocery store enhanced by soy. And it's not all grocery stores. You want the people serviced by this grocery store to be exposed to soy for some reason. And so we wrote a report entitled Waging War by Zip Code. How food in black communities available to black people is bio-enhanced to a degree that it is not in food made available to white people. All grocery stores aren't the same. It depends on food in the same grocery store chain is not the same. It depends on the zip code that the food store is set up in.
Now, folks would hearing this.
To your question, you would only enhance a food with soy if you want to expose the eater to the effect of soy, and the effects of soy are not good.
I got you. The average person hearing this, it's incredible to them that food distribution has broken down in terms of zip code. What can you bring to the table that would be an example of that?
Oh, absolutely. So, I was blessed to have 2 workers at food distribution centers come to me and tell me the process of their job. In one case, he said that trucks are loaded by zip code. Foods loaded on this truck go to this set of zip codes, and he said that a fireable offense is to load food boxes on wrong zip code trucks. So food trucks that are headed to North Chicago, don't you dare put on those trucks food boxes that are earmarked for zip codes in South Chicago. Because the food headed to zip codes in South Chicago is of a different nature than food earmarked for zip codes in North Chicago. Another brother told me he works for loads the distribution trucks at Dollar General, that service Dollar General and Dollar Tree. And please do this experiment. Go to the dollar stores in the hood, because dollar stores flood the hood. But they got dollar stores in affluent white neighborhoods. But this is the difference. White folks go to dollar store to get envelopes. White folks go to dollar store to get paper towels. Black folks go to dollar store to get groceries.
Right.
Groceries aren't. This is what the brother who did truck distribution for Dollar General and Dollar Tree. They spend they deliberately spend to the Dollar Trees and Dollar Generals in black neighborhoods have no other option. So they deliberately send low quality food to Dollar Generals and Dollar Trees in black neighborhoods, and they don't send food like that at all to the Dollar Trees in white neighborhoods because white folks don't buy their groceries from the dollar store.
Dr. Wesley, I would like to add to that there was a black guy working for a soft drink company based in Texas, international product, but his base was in Texas. And this story appeared in the Wall Street Journal back in possibly the 80s or early 90s. And what he brought out was he wasn't exactly a whistleblower. He was suing the company for discrimination. And one of the things he brought out was that the sodas that had been past the the date that it should be taken off the shelves were repackaged and sent into the black communities. So that was a front page story in the Wall Street Journal.
That's exactly right. Incidentally, the brother who did truck distribution trucks for Dollar General and Dollar Tree, that's one of the examples he used. He said soda isn't sent. The trucks, they go to the dollar stores in a white neighborhood, don't have a lot of soda on those trucks at all. But in the trucks that go to the dollar stores in black communities, they are loaded with soda and pop.
Yeah. I was looking for the phrase is called due date. The due date would be way past, and they would repackage these bad boys. A major company.
Yes, sir.
As this discussion is filled with other stories, other explanations, and what I'm interested in is what kind of pushback have you gotten from your revelations? And I'm looking at
tremendous.
Go ahead. The pushback.
Tremendous. I learned something in this process. Learned something I did not know, Brother Leroy, and I study black religiosity, but I learned something new about black religion through this whole process. I learned that more important to the Negro than the white jeans is the brown blunt. The brown blunt is the Negro's God. Negro got so angry with me because Allah has blessed me to expose what has been done to the weed that we are smoking. And instead of appreciating a revelation that can save our life, our children's health, our masculinity, the reaction has been vicious. Yes, it has. Not just so we have a number of factors here. The black smoker who is angry, but also the white merchant, because the $1 million marijuana industry is a white industry.
I'm sorry.
Smokers, black people have not been allowed to. But
I'm sorry, because in terms of our reception on this side, sometimes it goes in and out. Just start that sentence over again.
Yes. So black smokers are very angry with me, and white merchants are very angry with me. The cannabis, the medical, or the marijuana industry is a $1 billion industry, and white males, for the most part, are getting in those billions. So they're making money on black folks smoking it and white folks, but black smokers are a big market. And so they're mad at me because I'm exposing with the race that this weed is making black men, feminine black women, masculine, is causing a whole spectrum of health issues, of neurological issues, and it is contributing to our babies coming out gay. Yeah, they mad.
In the article in the Final Call, "Weed is not the answer" is the front page headline on the Final Call newspapers. Green and has handcuffs and has weed, etc. on the front. The point that you make is that one of the points that you make is that the states may legalize weed, but at the federal level it's still non-legal. And why is that important?
Criminalized.
Yeah, why is that important to somebody in a legalized state, black folks in a legalized state? You know, it's legal.
No. That's the trick and the trap. That's the trap and the trick. And so, I would cite Colorado, one of the earliest states to legalize both medical and recreational marijuana. And leading up to that legalization, one of the key arguments and key talking points to get black leaders on board with legalization, the talking point was because historically black and brown males bore the brunt of the criminalization of marijuana. Black and brown males were going to jail disproportionately on a marijuana charge. If we legalize marijuana in the state, our black and brown sons would no longer be criminalized, would no longer be thrown in jail for marijuana. What do the facts show, Brother Leroy? According to USA Today, August 7, 2017, quote, according to the Colorado Department of Public Safety, arrests in Colorado of black and Latino youth for marijuana possession have increased 58% and 29% respectively after legalization. This means that black and Latino youth are being arrested more for marijuana possession after it became legal, end quote. Because marijuana use and possession remains criminalized on the federal level, any state that legalizes marijuana, giving black people the false sense of security that we can be out on the block smoking our blunt, but the federal government and their agents can and are arresting us and throwing us in prison, so we are being thrown in prison in legal states at higher rates than before marijuana was legal. Now that marijuana is legal in Colorado, we are going to jail more than when marijuana was illegal in Colorado. It's because legalization is a trick and a trap.
I'm going to give you, before we conclude, I'm going to give you a headline story that's, that we saw on the Daily Mail website, dailymail.co.uk. Marijuana killed my son. Mother reveals how son's 4-year addiction to cannabis led to massive weight loss, organ failure, and death at 17 as increase in the drug's potency sees a rise in similar cases. This is a Caucasian lady who, I don't see the state, but this is currently on the internet for folks to research. They call it, the disease resulting from this addiction is called cannabinoid hyperamesthesis syndrome, CHS.
He died by 17 years old. He was dead, which means which is typical of the millennials, and now in particular, Gen Y and Gen Z folks. They are smoking marijuana earlier, much earlier, pre-adolescent. Smoking they are such as Gen Xers like me. We waited till we were 18, 19, right, or whatever to smoke. These Gen Y and Gen Z folks are starting to smoke as preteens, and that is where it is most dangerous because everything is still developing. Neurologically, we're still developing. Hormonally, we're still developing. Physiologically, it has this excessive THC content in it. It is doing devastation to our body. So, under the leadership of the Honorable Brother Mr. Farrakhan, we love all black people. But I gotta admit, Brother Leroy, that ethic is tested with me. When I see these parents put a blunt in the mouth of a little boy and post that shit on YouTube, excuse me. These parents think it's cute to give their child, 4-year-old, 5-year-old child, a blunt. Teach him how to smoke it. Video record it and put it on YouTube. I want to drop kick these parents in the
man. Wow, brother. That's amazing.
That is devastating to introduce this weaponized weed to our children. Don't do it, family. Don't do it.
Dr. Wesley, that is a conclusion, but I'm going to ask you 2 or 3 things that you would recommend for the general audience, for folks in a housing development like the Grand Houses and the other housing developments in Chicago, LA, etc. What are some things that concerned parents, after they hear this, and concerned young brothers can do to push back on this surge that's happening in our community quietly? It's like a stealth bomber, a ninja attack.
Yes, absolutely. First, the most important initial thing to be done by parents in particular is do not buy into the lie and the false talking point about the good of this marijuana. Do not buy into it. Because if you buy into it, your children are vulnerable to it now. So first and foremost, do not buy into the propaganda that is is being legalized and made available at the approved dispensaries, that it's not a health risk to you or your child. It is. So that's number one. Number two, if 15, 14-year-old child has started smoking weed, unfortunately, and I used to when I first started, I made the mistake of advising folks to just go cold turkey into new heroin. It's been made the new heroin. It's addictive like heroin because that's what they did when they inserted that nitrogen atom in a THC molecule. They made it like heroin. And so it's addictive. So just putting down the blunt today, it don't work today like it did in Louis Armstrong's day. So, the child needs help. You got to get your weaponized weed. I don't care if he or she purchased it legally from an approved dispensary. THC operations aren't natural THC. They're man-made synthetic THC lookalikes that do damage to your child. So you have to help your child get off of it. And then 3, be a voice against the bombardment weaponized weed.
Just repeat that last point.
Are we still there, Brother Leroy?
Yes, repeat that last point because it was going in and out.
Oh, we went out?
Yeah, I'm saying repeat the last point that you made because our reception was going in and out.
No. Point number 3, be with this legal but weaponized weed. We need parents, we need community leaders to rise up against this onslaught. This is an out onslaught. This legalization of this weaponized weed. We have to mobilize against it, against the use of it.
Got it. Dr. Wesley, this is the concluding point. Isn't it, I don't like to ask that kind of question, but I'll ask it that way anyway. Isn't it a fact that the weed in white areas is different from, I'm not talking about the legalized weed, I'm talking about the street weed. The weed that is obtained in a white neighborhood is different from the weed that is found in the black community?
It likely is, but the most fundamental difference is white folks smoke joint. The Negro smokes blunt, and that's very important. A joint is marijuana leaf rolled in white paper. A blunt is marijuana rolled in a tobacco covering, a cigar covering. So the blunt is weaponized THC mixed with tobacco, which has nicotine, affects white people because nicotine has a high melanin affinity. Nicotine attaches to melanated tissue. Melanin that pigment that makes black people black and brown. Nicotine tissues releasing its toxins throughout life. And so black people smoke blunt, which is weaponized THC with nicotine. So our smoking habit is much more dangerous than white folks' smoking habit.
Got it. My brother, this is interview number 1 on this subject and others. We definitely want to thank you for the work that you've done and the sharing of the knowledge that you have
Thank
around
you.
the country. And we thank Brother Minister Farrakhan for reconstituting the Nation of Islam, and this kind of information would not be out
Yes, we do.
if it were not for ministers starting up the Nation of Islam, being blessed to do that, and
That's
having a
fact.
paper. Just as it's a fact that Master Fard Muhammad, if he didn't come, we wouldn't even be talking on this thing.
That is right. And to go further, this point has to be made. No conspiracy that Allah is blessing me to document would be known by any of us except Allah revealed it to the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, and he revealed it to us. It was the minister who exposed the crack conspiracy before Gary Webb. It was the minister that exposed the
Right.
assault on black masculinity, chemical and otherwise. Everything, the only thing I'm doing is chasing down the revelation with documentation. So I would have nothing to say on this subject if the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan did say it first.
My brother, all praise is due to Allah. We want to thank you, thank you, thank you. May Allah continue
Thank
to bless
you.
you and your family, to bless us, and the audience in particular is blessed with this information today. May you have much,
Thank
much
you,
more
Brother
success.
Leroy.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Communicators, and coming up next is another show here on the Grand Houses Community Radio. The program that you heard, the Communicators, does not reflect the views, attitudes, whims, deeds, or any other proclivities of the management of this housing development, nor that of the leadership and the body of the tenant council here at Grant Houses. God bless you all with a very, very beautiful day and very, very beautiful week. Peace.